Guten Tag, meine Kameraden, friends and aces. Once again, I bid you welcome to a little bit more of Rise of Flight. Today we're going to look at an aircraft that is often hailed as a revolutionary step in fighter development. I will be delivering you guys a brief overview of the Fokker Eindecker, a German aircraft during the First World War that was used extensively as a scout in early on, then as a fighter, and was more or less phased out in mid-1916 as more powerful aircraft appeared on both sides of the front. We will also have a look at an engagement against a biplane, and I'll show you guys a few tricks of what you can do against an aircraft that essentially is superior to the one that you're flying yourself. Now I hope that you guys will join me for this brief history lesson right now, just before we charge right into the French Air Force. Now the Fokker Eindecker was designed by Anthony Fokker, this handsome fellow right here, who, contrary to what some people seem to believe, was actually not German, he was Dutch. It resembled very closely to some of the planes that the French used during the First World War, and this was for good reason. Fokker had essentially copied the design and labeled the aircraft as his own. Now this was not the first time, and it would certainly not be the last time, that Anthony Fokker would draw upon the works of others in order to create something himself and benefit accordingly. He was first and foremost a businessman. This also showed when we look at the armament of the Fokker Eindecker. Now it was armed with a Spandau machine gun, the 7.92mm LMG-08. And of course at this point we have to talk about the Gestängelsteuerung, which is a simple but intricate way of saying that your machine gun is synchronized with the propeller, allowing you to fire through it without actually hitting the blades. Now once again, Anthony Fokker is somebody who is nowadays considered to be the pioneer of this kind of technology, that it was him who invented it, that he deserves all the credit. This is actually not true. The idea or the basic concept behind this already appeared as patents back in 1913, even before the war started. And this got Fokker into all sorts of legal trouble. It must also be mentioned that although, for example, the French had not used a Gestängelsteuerung of sorts in their planes, they had a workaround and essentially armed their propeller blades with little metal deflectors, which allowed the pilot to fire while the propeller was spinning, and any kind of bullet that would hit the blade would be deflected away from it and causing no damage. But even though this idea was not exactly new, and Fokker had in the past and will also in the future copy other people's designs, he nearly always improved on them himself. And in his defense, when it comes to the Gestängelsteuerung, we must also say that he was the first one to put it into production during that time. Now, even though the Fokkers had this advantage over the Allied aircraft, due to the synchronization with the propeller blades, the rate of fire dropped to around 520 rounds a minute, which is not amazing, but it does get the job done. Now, the Fokker E.III is powered by an Oberursel 9-cylinder air-cooled rotary engine. This produces roughly 100 horsepower, which is respectable at the time when the Eindeckers came out. However, it must be said that this engine was not exactly long-lasting, especially during frequent use. With this engine, the E.III was able to fly up to 140 km an hour, plus minus a few. Not exactly bad, especially when it was introduced, but by mid-1916 the Fokker Eindeckers certainly showed their age, and newer and more powerful Allied aircraft had surpassed the Eindeckers in nearly every account. But that's that for the history lesson, and oh look how convenient, we've arrived at the mission area. And we've arrived also just in time to see our glorious friends over there attacking balloons. Now, balloon busting is a very important part of the First World War. In fact, you might take that as a joke, but it's not. And balloon kills were considered to be equal to plane kills. And if you want to know more about that, click on the video annotation right now. That'll take you to another video that I did explaining you all those things. But of course, even though my flight lead wanted to go home with our job essentially done by another flight of aircrafts, I decided against that and separated myself. Now that first target I see is a balloon, don't worry about that, we are actually going to find much more targets later on. And a couple of warning shots there telling the French guy to stop running and stand and deliver. A couple of more shots here, very steep dive, we gotta be careful, but the balloon does burst into flames. We pull out, nothing happened to our aircraft luckily there, and we get our first kill of the day, but it's a balloon. And yeah, we might want to have an aircraft. Now all that commotion left us a little bit blind, because we're being shadowed by a couple of French fighters, Nieuports, and we have an ally who alone charges them. At that point, of course, the knightly virtues, gentlemen of the sky, we can't stand for that, we gotta help him. He's charging at least 4 or 5 aircraft there, so we gotta do what we can. And a couple of seconds later, I find myself completely surrounded and under pressure by I don't know how many Nieuports. And yeah, we're trying to find ourselves a target here, trying to keep our 6 clean as well. It seems to be working somehow. They're not taking me all that serious, which is probably good for me that I'm flying an antiquated aircraft at this point. These Nieuport pilots are probably just laughing at us, this silly monoplane that is trying to fight them. But we do have an MG, and you know what that means. That of course means trouble. Now we have our 6 clean, and we are trying to go for this Nieuport right here, and he presents ourselves a nice little shot. I don't think we actually connected there, but we are keeping ourselves in this fight. We are a little bit late on the go around here, where I should have reversed earlier. And as you can see, the Nieuport is charging right at me. He's starting to fire, and he's going to score a couple of hits. But then he makes his mistake. I roll opposite and go on his 6, and at this point I really am in a very good position. I have to try to keep it, because the Nieuport in many ways outperforms me, outmaneuvers me, outturns me, and so on. And at this point it's really down to keeping myself in an advantageous position, keeping the pressure going, and keeping him guessing. At this point, as you will see in the dogfight that is going to unfold here, I use a combination of high yo-yos and low yo-yos to keep myself behind him. You can do that against aircrafts that sometimes are even better turners than you if you do this, and also it is more energy efficient than making a complete turn. Now, having these basic ACMs down is an integral part of Rise of Flight and many other flight simulations. In fact, I would in fact say that if you practice these things in Rise of Flight, you will immediately see a improvement on your flying, because the combat ranges are so much closer than in many other sims. But once you apply that knowledge and that experience to other sims, you'll see a big improvement in your flying in those aircraft sims as well. Now, as you can see, I'm keeping myself on this Nieuport, trying to get myself into a firing solution. He's not making it easy for me. He's not making it easy, and I don't want to overpull. But as you can see, a nice little burst right into his tail pleads the deal. He loses his vertical stabilizers and part of his elevators there. At this point, I think also I snapped all his control cables, so he's really just flying straight at this point. It's all about finishing the deal at this point, and you really should just take your time, really. Nibble at him once in a while just to see where can I get the killing shot, and there we go, we have him, and he's going down. Now the sad part, of course, about First World War combat is no parachutes. But there you go, that was a successful mission here in the Fokker Eindecker. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, share it with your friends, and as always, have a great day, good hunting, and see you on the sky.